Hi everybody, this is Freddie and welcome back to another video of me trying to set up a vanilla UHC server. I've done loads of work since the last time you were with me, loads of research, and hopefully we'll be able to crack on and do quite a bit today. At the end of the last video, you may remember I was talking about putting everybody into spectator mode when they die. So I want to do that first, and then we want to play with the world border, shrinking world border. After that, I've had loads of comments from you guys. Thank you very much for that. The general consensus is to leave it at least a day before we start to shrink the world border, to give people enough time to do a bit of caving, do a bit of crafting, maybe go to the nether if they're really brave, to get a bit of nether wart to make some potions. So I think that's what we'll do. But for that, I'm going to need a timer. I was initially thinking of using a daylight sensor, but that's going to mean digging all the way up to the surface. And to be honest, I don't want to do that. I'm using command blocks everywhere. Why don't you just use a command block? So that's what I'm going to do. But to start with, I'm going to be creating a new objective in order to record how many times we die, and I'm going to use that to turn players into spectator mode, or to put players into spectator mode when they die. So let's crack on and do that. Hey for camp. So I'm going to call it deaths. I may as well call it deaths. So we need to set up an objective for deaths. So scoreboard objectives, add. I want to call it deaths, and it's going to be the death count. So now whenever anybody dies, that's going to show up as one death. Let me see. I want to be able to see how many deaths we've got as well. So if I just change the display for that, set display list deaths. So now under the tab at the top, it says whether or not we've died, and at the moment neither of us have died. That is about to change. So I could stand here and have a game of Russian roulette with real cam, but I won't. So what I'm going to do is just kill myself. Now if we look at the tab, and if we look at the top of the screen, I have now got a death score of 1. So I can now use that via a command block to put me in spectator mode when I die. So let's grab a couple of command blocks. Grab one of those. I'm going to need to test for. I'm trying to think on the fly here. I'm going to need a command block, a repeating command block that tests for whether or not we've died. So it'll test for a death score. Then I'm going to need a command block that puts me into spectator mode when the player has died, or puts a player into spectator mode when they've died. And then I'm going to need to reset the death count, because if I don't, it's going to continually check for whether or not you've died, and if you have, it'll keep putting you in spectator mode. So once we've all died, there'll be nobody left on the server to access any of the command blocks or any of the buttons, because we'll all be continually in spectator mode. So let me just set that up. So we need a test for any player that's got score deaths of minimum equals 1. So if any player's got a death score of 1, this is going to test for it. It needs to be a repeating command block, and it needs to be always active, because I always wanted to check for it. And then you see in the chat now, it's coming up with it's found me because I've got 1 death. Then I'm going to need another, and notice again these are all running into each other. I'm going to need another command block that now puts me in game mode 3. So game mode 3, any player with a score of deaths minimum or equal to 1, chained, always active. This should put, maybe I shouldn't do that one first. Let me put that on needs redstone to start with, otherwise Freelcam's going to have to do some work. And then last, we're going to need a final command block that resets the deaths. So this is scoreboard players reset any player at any player with a score on the death subjective that is equal to, or minimum equal to 1. So that can be 5 or 8 or 10, as long as it's minimum 1. And then reset the death subjective. That is always active. And you can see at the bottom it's actually reset my score. So I'm now no longer dead. I need that needs to be on a chain command block as well. And then we need to put this one to always active. Now, in theory, all things being considered, if I kill myself again, I should reappear. Why has FreeCam disappeared? I should appear in spectator mode. Fabulous. Brilliant. So that worked. And did it reset my kill count? I don't know yet. If I can't put myself back into game mode 1, then we have got a bit of a problem. Game mode 1. Oh yes, brilliant. So that's the first part of it done. So now, whenever a player dies, they get put into spectator mode. Hey Frills, high five. Oh, I can't. Why can't I whack you? Oh no, because I'm in creative. Brilliant. I've just realised that although that's fantastic and it's exactly what we were looking for, it doesn't help me if we're out and about in the world when we die, because it spawns you back here or wherever you spawned in. It'll spawn us back up at spawn at the top, which is no good. So I need to continually update my spawn, and that's easy enough to do. We can do that just using a repeating command block. So if I just get a repeating command block, and then there's a command for it. It's brilliant. Spawn point, which basically means the player's spawn point for everybody, and that will just update everybody's spawn point. So every 10, 20 times a second, or 20 times a tick. I think it's 20 times a tick. There were 20 ticks in a second. Maybe it's 20 times a second. Anyway, very rapidly, everybody's spawn point is going to be updated to wherever they are. So if I do that, put it on always active, it'll now spam chat with mine and FreeCam's spawn point, because it's continually updating. So now if I run over here, FreeCam, and kill myself, I should respawn here. I want to do when I'm in creative. Brilliant. And if I go over here and kill myself, can you kill yourself when you're in creative? Yes, you can. I respawn over here. I was looking, I don't suppose it makes a difference, but I was looking south then. Once more, because I'm pleased. Kill myself. Yeah, you're always facing south when you spawn. Isn't that interesting? But that's sorted that out. So now, wherever in the world we are, when we die, we will respawn there. Brilliant. Job done. Right, I've got a bit of a confession. I've just spent at least 2 hours, probably more than that, 3 hours, going through, rendering the video of me putting commands in all of these command blocks and explaining what all of they do in reasonable detail. And I tell you what, I was boring myself to death. Now, as I mentioned at the start of the very first episode, I'm not an expert, and this is not a tutorial. It's just me trying to set up a UHC server in vanilla without any mods or anything like that. And I'm sure you don't want to see me going through. I mean, I did enough of that in the last video when I was doing the chain of blocks behind me. So what I'm going to do instead today is I'm not going to force you to sit and watch me put codes inside all of these command blocks, but what I am going to do is quickly run through, and I say quickly, it's probably still going to take me a little while, but I'm going to go through what all of the command blocks do and why I've done it. So we'll start off just here, which is just to show you the ones that we did previously. We did them all the way over there, and I've moved them over this side for no good reason, really. I can't think of a reason why, but anyway, I have. There was a little bit more room, maybe. So this is the spawn point. monitor that continually updates a player spawn for when he dies to go into spectator mode. And this is the chain of command blocks that puts the player, it checks for whether or not the player's died, and then it puts the player in spectator mode, and then it resets the death count. But what this one also does, and I think it's fantastic, I initially wanted everybody on the server to know that you died. So I wanted a message to appear in chat, Frilioth has died. But on the current server I play on the vanilla server, when the server's about to restart, or there's a couple of other occasions as well, it flashes upon the screen in big letters, "Thanks for voting," or "Server's about to restart," or something like that. And I wanted it to do that rather than the text appear in chat. I wanted "Frilioth has died" plastered across the screen, so it's impossible to miss. Everybody would see it. And you do that using a title. You have to execute a title, and this is a longer code. I'll put all of the codes that I've used, as I did last time, in the description. But basically, this is going to execute for any player that's got a death score of minimum equals 1. So we're using the same objective that we used for putting the player into spectator mode when they die. It's going to check to see if you've died. It's then going to put a title for everybody that's going to say that that player has died. It's going to be easier for me to show you. So make sure this is not in always active. So if I now kill myself, so now every time somebody dies, that's going to appear on screen. And obviously the team name, the colour of the name is the team that they're on, which I think is fantastic. So that's the first thing we've done. Right, where to start? I've had to create a few new objectives. I suppose let me run through the list of objectives I've had to create in order to get this to do what I wanted it to do. So now if you look at the bottom left hand corner, I've created a few more objectives. There's the first one is dead, which is exactly the same as the death count, but I needed it in order to get the player's name from the sidebar. It's quite complicated, and I'll go through it a little bit when I start showing you the command blocks that remove a player from the. If you look on the right hand side of the screen now, currently displaying health. Once you've died, when you respawn again, your health goes back up to 20, even if you respawn in creative. So it'll go back up to 20, and you'll stay, the player stays in the sidebar. And I didn't want that to happen. I wanted the sidebar to continually shrink. I'm moving my hands up and down and everything here. You can't see it. I look great. But I wanted the sidebar to shrink, so only the names of the players that were currently alive and playing were listed on the right hand side of the screen. And to do that, I needed to calculate who had died, but I couldn't use the death score because that's reset when you turn into spectator mode. So I had to create another objective and call it dead and use that one instead. So that's what the dead, this is, I apologise if this is complicated and this is not what you signed up for, but it's important that you know. So that's what the dead count, the dead objective does. It stores the amount of times you've died in order for me to take you off of the list on the sidebar on the right hand side of the screen. We've got the health objective, which you know about. That's shown on the right hand side of the screen at the moment, 20, and continually decreases when you take damage and eventually die. Kills is the amount of players that you kill. Deaths we spoke about earlier, that's used to put you into spectator mode when you die. And then the time objective I'm going to use for the shrinking of the world border initially. So we've set time as an objective. I've also set a player, and you might be able to see it. I've allocated time to a player. And if we list the players currently on the server, we've got Frilioth, we've got my Frilioth camera account, and then we've got a player called Timer, and that's a dummy player, and I've allocated the time objective to that player, and that basically means I can now manipulate that figure. So I'm going to start it at 0 and then use a repeating command block to add a number to it every tick until it reaches a certain amount of ticks, which will determine when the world border starts to shrink. Now a Minecraft day has got 24,000 ticks in it, so I'm probably going to set that to 24,000, and that's that command block there. I'm going to set it to 24,000, so once it reaches 24,000, these command blocks are going to test for it, and this is going to start shrinking the world border to 100 once it reaches 24,000. And then this is going to put, like the Frilioth is dead title that appeared across the screen, this is going to put a title on the screen that the border is shrinking, so everybody knows it's shrinking, and then it's going to reset that timer back to 0, so it just doesn't continually keep going and going and going. And it's finally going to put an air block above 2269, which is this one here. So it's going to put an air block above this particular command block, but there's going to be a redstone block on it, which is going to be powering the command block. So once this reaches 24,000, it's going to reach the end of the line, that command block there, and then it's going to replace the redstone block above it with a block of air, effectively turning the timer off. So they're the objectives that I've had to create so far. And in case you were wondering what these command blocks did, this, because I've been messing about and updating objectives and deleting objectives and replacing them and everything else, instead of me having to type them all out, I've put them all into these command blocks. So if I'm ever messing about and I want to get it back to the way it was, this will just add the health objective and the player kill count objective and the deaths objective and the time. You see, this is just an initial setup just for my use. Probably not going to keep it, but that's what that's for, in case you were wondering what it was. This is my pre-game setup. So when I first come onto the server, before any other players turn up, and I'm probably going to, actually I've just reminded myself, I'm probably going to need to update, have to update the spawn point of everybody on here as well. So I'm glad I thought about that. Well done. Thanks for reminding me. But this is just a list of commands that I need to action prior to anybody else coming onto the server. And this includes turning off the continual spawn. So when we start the game, it's going to put a redstone block above there. It's going to put a redstone block above there, and it's going to remove that redstone block down there. And I don't want this to continually be updating your spawn. So what this command does is effectively removes that redstone block from there, turning off your continual spawn update. This block will turn off the daylight cycle, and this block will set the time to dawn. This one will reset your dead objective. Now remember, your dead objective removes you, or allows me to remove you from the health bar on the right hand side. If you start the game and your dead objective is more than 0, i.e. 1, then you won't appear on the sidebar, so that's what that does. This one will reset your deaths score, just in case. This one will reset your kills score, because we don't want you coming onto the server with 5 kills and then just looking like the daddy when you're not actually the daddy. This resets the dummy player that we created called Timer. That resets his score back to 0, so that when we start the clock, this clock here, when we restart that starts from 0. Doesn't start from a different time. These are all reset elsewhere, but this is like a belt and braces thing, really. I thought the more times I do it, the less chance I've got of it going wrong. And this resets the world border back to 2000, just in case it's still down at 100. So that's the pre-start sequence. That's what I come on and press prior to the game beginning. And as you can see on the right hand side, it's reset all of the scores that we've just gone through. Now this is the start game. This button and this command block and all of this is probably going to be somewhere in here. Probably going to be against one of these walls, maybe this wall here. But for the time being, it's just out here because it's easier for me to show you. And this is what we press when we start the game. So when you start the game, it's going to put an air block above this block here. This redstone block here currently is locking that timer, and I'll go through the timer in a second. But when we press the start button, that redstone block is going to be replaced by an air block, effectively turning that hopper timer on. This is then going to put a redstone block above the timer here, this timer, which is the timer that's going to count upwards, and we're going to use that to start shrinking the world border when the timer reaches 24,000. And this needs redstone, so that command block there puts a redstone block above there, turning the timer on. This is going to put a redstone block above here, which is the spawn monitor, which again needs redstone. So this is currently not working. If I die now, I'm going to respawn wherever my last spawn point was, which is probably over there somewhere. That command block puts a redstone block above here, turning that on. So then whenever the player from then on dies, they will respawn at the place where they died. And finally, it's going to put a redstone block above here, which is the start sequence. We went through these the other day. I've added a couple to it. So remember, we were playing about with a couple of blocks here that gave you instant health, and then gave you damage, and then gave you instant health. And that was to get you initially onto the health bar on the right hand side. Well, what this does is it's a similar thing. It does exactly the same thing, only it's incorporated into the start sequence. So now the first thing that happens is you will take damage. Then it'll turn off the natural regeneration, so that you can only be healed using golden apples or potions, UHC. Then it's going to set the time to 0, even though we've already set the time to 0 over there. As I say, belt and braces, because it does. Then it's going to put the difficulty in hard mode. Then it's going to put you in game mode 1, survival. It's going to put everybody in game mode 0, survival. It's then going to reset your kills. As I say, I know I've done it over there, but I'm doing it again here. Maybe I'll refine it, I don't know. Then it's going to clear all your inventory. Then it's going to set the world border to 2000, even though we've already set it to 2000 over there again. I could always remove that block, maybe. Then it's going to put the daylight cycle to true. So now obviously the days are going to turn into nights, are going to turn into days, that sort of thing. You know what the daylight cycle is. Then it's going to spread you randomly about the map. We looked at that in the last episode. And then it's going to put an air block above this command block here, which basically turns everything off because there's currently a redstone block above it. So that's going to happen. Now, with this timer does a couple of things. The timer does one thing, it counts upwards. These 3 command blocks here, these 3 repeating command blocks here do a couple of things. This one, as I mentioned earlier, this tests for whether or not it reaches a specific time. And once it's reached a specific time, it's going to activate that comparator, which is then going to start shrinking the world border. Now, as I mentioned, I'm going to put this to 24,000 at the moment because I'm testing. It's only at 200. but I'm going to put that to 24,000. So once the timer reaches 24,000, in effect a Minecraft day, it's going to start shrinking the border. And then the next command block is going to put a big title on your screen saying the world border is shrinking. So it's unmissable. You aren't going to be able to miss it. Then it's going to reset the timer back to 0. Again, I reset the timer over there, but I'm resetting it here anyway, just in case. So that's going to reset it back to 0. And then this is going to put an air block above here. So it's going to replace the redstone block that's here with an air block to, in effect, turn off that timer. Now, what this block does, what this command block does, is once it reaches 5, so almost immediately, you know, that time is going to start. Within less than a second, it's going to reach 5. Okay, and this command block tests for that. Once it's reached 5, that comparator is going to turn on this command block, which gives you instant health. Effect 6 for everybody. Now, you might remember effect 6 is instant health, so it's going to give everybody a the health effect for 1 second times 50 almost straight away. And that counteracts this effect, the instant damage effect. So straight away you take damage, and then within a second you will get regenerated, you'll get healed. And what that does is it puts you on the sidebar for health on the right hand side. It seems a very haphazard way of doing it, but it's the only way I could figure out how to do it. If there's a better way to get you on the health bar on the right hand side, please tell me, because I don't like the idea of giving people damage and then healing them again. And then there's another title that appears at the start of the game that just says game time. We'll go through that in a second. I'll just fire up the game in a second so you can see what that does. And then this repeating command block tests for the timer being at 1, which is even quicker than that one. And what this does is it puts a subtitle on the screen that will only appear with a title. So that's why I've set it up to activate before the title appears for game time, because I wanted it to appear at the same time. I don't think I'm explaining this very well at all. It'll be easier for me to show you in a second, but basically there is going to be a title appear on the screen when we start the game that says game time, and a subtitle underneath it in smaller letters that says make your way to 00 and kill anything that moves. So that's what that command block does. Now, just to go back to this timer that I touched on earlier that's currently locked, the two command blocks on there are command blocks that set the objective side display. So the display at the moment says health, and that's the health sidebar command block there. This command block changes the sidebar from health to kills, and depending on how many items I've got in the hopper, I've currently only got 16 in there, so it's not very long. You might be able to see if I pop that out. Currently on the right hand side it shows how much health we've got. It doesn't come up with kills because I haven't killed anybody. You'll have to trust me. I'll have a quick game with FreeCam in a second, and I'll show you. But that's what that does. I think we've gone through all. Oh no, we haven't. This is the command block that removes you from the health bar when you die. So it's using the dead objective that we talked about earlier. So if your score of the dead objective reaches 1, it's going to reset your health, which is why I couldn't use death. I had to create another one. So when the player dies, he's going to be removed from the health menu on the right hand side. I think that's all of them. What I want to do now, just for the end of the episode, because I've gone through a lot of command blocks today, and that's not what I wanted to do. I didn't want to bore you. Hopefully you're still watching, because this is going to be good fun. Right, so we're currently, I don't know what team I'm on. I'm on the red team. I need to go and put myself on the blue team. I don't know whether I've currently got friendly fire on. We will soon find out. So now myself and Frillcam are both in the blue team. I'm going to whack the button and start the game, and hopefully you'll see what happens. Okay, so it's TP'd us to a random part around the world. It's put us both on the right hand menu, which we'll see in a second. There you go, health 2020. Perfect. Obviously I don't have any kills yet because nobody's killed anybody. Whoops. Frillcam, what's your step? Oh man, are you going to die? I can't believe you. Have you got feather falling boots on or something? Last one. And now hopefully, there you go. Frillcam has died, unfortunately. And I've just had a quick look on the other screen. I've respawned where I died in spectator mode. And because I've set the world border to start shrinking after 1,000 ticks, that's come up on the screen as world border is shrinking. So I need to quickly make my way wherever I've got to make my way. Obviously that'll be set to 24 hours, but at the moment for testing it's on 1,000. I don't know why I've got fart bubbles and swirls everywhere at the moment. I shouldn't have, and I'm not showing that I've got any effect. And Frillcam isn't showing any effect either, so I'm not quite sure what that is. I'm going to have to do a bit more testing for that. But it's so far so good. It works. Now I suppose I really ought to die and see what happens. Nearly there. One more of those and I'll be okay. I'll have popped my clogs. Oh, and as I say, on the right hand side, it's Frillcam should have disappeared from. Oh no, he has. Frillcam's disappeared from health, which is exactly what I wanted. Shall we have a way with a creeper? Come on then. Really? Didn't want to stop blowing up the terrain, but nevertheless, as you saw, Frillioth has died, and I've respawned in creative, so I can carry on watching my teammate or flying around to try and find where everybody else is. Now, I think in the next episode, let me get back to spawn. So I think in the next episode, I'll look at refining it a little bit more, working on some timings. I also want to play about with Discord for everybody to be able to speak to each other. I'm going to have to add some channels into my Discord channel. Now, currently, I think I've just got a couple of channels, an AFK and a general chat one, but I'm going to have to add a UHC channel or category, and then under that probably the teams as well. So you find out what your teams are, the players then go into their Discord channel and they're allowed to speak to each other, and then when you die you'll probably finish up going into a dead channel, so you can't talk to your teammate. I mean, what we don't want is to have people flying around in creative and telling their teammates who are still playing where everybody is. And I've got to sort out why I've got fart bubbles everywhere. But I'll do that as and when. Anyway, if you've made it this far, thank you very much. Thank you for bearing with me. Today has been it's been a hard episode, and I'm sure it's been hard for you guys. But I appreciate it if you're still watching, because this is the bulk of it done. All we've got to do now, as I say, is work on the Discord channel and then work on our PvP spawn area at the top, the centre of the map, where everybody's going to congregate at the end of the game. And I'm looking at putting in some kind of PvP area. At the moment, I'm erring on the side of my favourite Black Ops 2 map, which is Raid. I've managed to find a map that recreates Raid in Minecraft. It's fantastic. So I think, although PR has been good enough to find me another couple of maps, I think at the moment I might be erring on the side of raid. Anyway, we'll do that in the next episode. Thank you very much for watching. As I mentioned, I will put all of the codes used in today's command blocks in the descriptions in case you ever want to use them yourself. If you have enjoyed the episode, please don't forget to leave it a like, and if you've really loved it, don't forget to smash that subscribe button for future videos. This is, oh, I've just remembered Phil comes out there in the wilderness. Never mind, I'm sure he can look after himself. This is Frilioth, and I am out of here.